So Abner, Google Photos is now 10. It's a small child in app circles.
Yeah, Damien. Yeah, it's funny. We were kind of talking about it last week in the context of just basic gallery apps. But what Google is celebrating is Google Photos was announced 10 years ago at I/O 2015. I saw Sundar had a post about how it was an early example of bringing research into reality, which is the theme of this I/O. Specifically, I think deep neural networks and how it improves search, which is still to me the underrated feature. You can just type in. It's hardly is it hard for me to find anything in Google Photos these days with the natural language queries. But yeah, 10 years of it. I guess, well, technically, some people used Google Plus Photos before it. And there was, of course, Picasa, but that was before my time.
I never used Picasa, but I definitely used Google Plus Photos for a little bit in the early days of using Android phones. But I think in a post-Google Photos world, it's amazing to think that most devices now come with a cloud-based storage approach
Every
to
device,
things.
Absolutely.
And I feel like it's probably underplayed at how important Google Photos has been to the smartphone era. Like in an age when we're carrying around incredible cameras in our pockets and they've only evolved over time, I feel like with Google Photos, it is genuinely one of the most understated applications on any phone. I mean, I complained about it a little bit last week that I think that it's starting to get, in my opinion, a little bit bloated, but what it does incredibly well. And once you tie it into the whole Drive and cloud storage ecosystem,
it's a given these days. It's understated because I don't think most people have to worry about backups if they enable just the default one on their phone. That is a reliable sync experience for most people. With storage, just getting them to actually buy storage being the main thing. But yeah, the app, I feel like we're due for an upgrade. Well, we got a look of the redesigned photo editor, which is a heavy emphasis on AI tools. But even before getting into that, they showed the Google Lens button in the full screen photo viewer that appears to be switching to Add To, so they can quickly add things to albums and such. That was an interesting small tweak. But yeah, the actual editor itself, it looks like they've cleaned it up. They've gotten rid of the double carousel effect is probably still there, but it feels like they put more there. I think it's a more full screen UI in that, placing some things in the top. It's more compact without being too overcrowded. So I think there's definitely a simplification going towards the editor. But here's a question I have for you. How often do you edit photos? Because honestly, I was just looking at the stuff I took at I/O, the team and the event and stuff. I rarely edit photos. I kind of like I don't really share photos that much, but still, even stuff I send to friends, I don't think maybe I crop it, maybe not, but I kind of like the pure untouched image these days. Maybe that's a sign of my age.
Do you know, it could be. I feel like, I'm kind of the same in that I don't very often. Well, here's how I would describe it. I don't want to make edits in post. I would rather it be almost perfect to begin with. Like, I think that's like a videographer style thing where I don't like the terminology sometimes fix it in post, because you will take an image, a bad image, and you'll try your best to fix it. But I feel like if you get the shot initially without having to worry about it, the framing being wrong, somebody being in the shot that you don't want to be there, maybe younger people don't care because these tools have existed the entire time they've been using devices. I think I've
Instagram era, they definitely used a lot of filters, but I rarely do that ever now.
Maybe filters are a strange one. I'm not a huge fan of filters in general, because I think
they're showing
they start to break down images, right? Yeah, but I think maybe with the modern camera system, I mean, obviously I'm using the S25 Ultra at the moment, and the most of the photos that come out of that are fantastic to begin with, and I don't really want to make too many tweaks. I think it's a good thing that Photos has these, but I do actually. You raise another question that this is much more broadly like rhetorical a little bit. If Google made some of these features a little bit more desktop friendly, I wonder where they would go. Like it would be. I would love to see a Google Photos plugin for Photoshop, for instance. Like that would be fantastic. I would maybe would be more tempted to edit my images in Photoshop if I had direct access to a repo or a cloud plugin for Photoshop. And I do wonder if that might be something that Google eventually does. But yeah, as for tweaking things, I think that the tool set's pretty good. I'm just not a huge fan of making edits using my finger. I think with the S Pen, I'm more inclined to do it. But even then, I just think, like you say, you take the image and it's kind of done. Like that's how it is. I feel like that's kind of a cool way to do it.
Yeah, like I used to be such a big Snapseed user because the UI was so intuitive. You slide up and down to access the tool, and you go left and right to edit the value. And to me, that's still ingrained to me in editing. I still have Snapseed installed on my phone, and I personally don't think Google. I feel like Google probably wants to kill it and just bring all people into Photos, but at this point, I don't think it's worth the hassle for them to do it because it's totally on device. There's no real. I'm sure there's zero cloud component, so it doesn't matter. They can keep it running. But yeah, I think they'll stay around for continue to stay around because people just love that intuitive interface, and it probably doesn't make sense for them to do any more updates, like just getting a Google Photos editor redesign. But just food for thought, I guess.
I do think, though, that all of these things are good to have in Google Photos. I think because like I say, it's 10 years since it was. I mean, it actually feels longer, if I'm being completely honest. But I think if you have a huge library of backed up images, I'm really intrigued to see what happens with some of the AI tools. Like I know we've had the image unblur and all that kind of stuff, and I know some of them were behind a paywall. It would be really cool if you could have access to, say, bulk image processing almost within Google Photos. I would love to see what that could do, because sometimes I'll go through and see some of my oldest images, and I'm like, they're actually pretty good still. Like, I mean, I don't mean in terms of like how as a photo. I mean, as in like the quality's passable. I would love to see something like Google Photos, either on your phone or maybe on the website, where you can kind of like, it will give you more suggestions, or maybe give you non-destructive edits where you can be like, hey, sharpen all of these, clean these up, and then see what the end result's like. Because I think if AI is going to be integrated, I'm not going to do it like you say with the brand new phone. It's the older images I'm going to make the changes to give them a new lease of life.
It's AI. That's the thing. That's the other big thing about this editor. You can circle a part of a photo, tap it, and then you get a list of relevant AI tools that can make changes. I think just going forward in the future, it's AI. Like we already have Reimagine with, where you like select a part of the photo and describe what you want it to happen. I don't think that's taken off with the Pixel 9. I know that was like a flagship push, but I don't think, nor do I kind of don't want to see those photos. It's not real, or it didn't accurately depict whatever happened. Actually, Pixel 8 actually. Maybe it's Pixel 8.
I think, there was Pixel 8, I think. Yeah, again, feels like a long time ago since they started adding these AI features already.
Yeah, but I guess I'm less interested in that kind of stuff, and like changing the background versus like natural conversational editing, where you can like, I know you can ask it to crop, you can make it brighter by just saying it versus manually going in there yourself. So maybe that's the kind of AI stuff I'm curious in Google Photos. But yeah, it's Google Photos at 10. Again, like with Google Plus, which is kind of amusing that's what survived the social network. Probably a bit longer, but it's 10.
Yeah, 10. Let's hope we get 10 more years out of it. I think we will. I think the fact that everyone is so deeply ingrained within it, and I think if you're like me and you have a Nest Hub, and I know you have several Nest Hubs and Pixel tablets, I think one of the most underrated features of Pixel any Android that is, and Google Photos, the integration with them is just amazing. To have images appear in your home, and I think that to me has been the biggest thing for Google Photos in the last. I guess it's 5 years, isn't it? 5 years since the Nest Hub. Was it 2018, 2019, maybe a bit longer that first became a thing, and so no, 7 years. I'm talking rubbish. It's basically, yeah. If you feel like you're not getting enough out of Google Photos, go pick up a used or a cheap Nest Hub, Home Hub, and it'll bring those photos to life for you. And you have a library of images that maybe you don't look at. You backed up hundreds of thousands, whatever you've backed up. And I think, that's something that nobody else is really doing apart from, I think, Amazon at this point in time.
Or even putting the photos gallery widget on your home screen, one of your home screens. It's a fun way to, every time, not on the main one, obviously, but on a secondary home screen. It's kind of nice. 10 years. That was IO 10 years ago, and we've now had a week to live with the last one. How are you feeling?
As you can probably tell, I sound a little bit bedraggled. I managed to pick something up on the way home, but apart from that, a lot of things have percolated in my brain, and there's some incredible announcements. I'm sure everyone out there has listened and seen the insane VO3 compilations, and how, I mean, I guess there are a few tells in it at this point in time, and I don't want to. It's almost like I don't want to say what's wrong with AI video, because that gives the next iteration the actual where they need to fix it, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
But yeah, there's a few things about that I'm kind of on the fence about. It is impressive, but at the same time, it's like I'm not sure the true applications.
That's I think one knock of this and like Google AI Pro in its current AI Ultra in its current iteration. I personally have no interest in the generative media side of it. The VO imaging, I just don't have a use case for that in my life. So that's the thing that's why I'm not too enthused about AI Pro, AI Ultra right now. But yeah, people do have access to it, to Google's credit. And to what you're saying, people are sharing these examples, they're making these examples. It is something to talk about. And it's a good I/O, or good keynote rather, has something that people can play with immediately and share and talk about. And I think we got that last week. But I guess for my personal cup of tea, it's not really not the kind of thing I want to play around with. But I guess my takeaway is that it was a pretty good I/O in terms of it was one of the better I/Os in recent history, in terms of the announcements, in terms of how futuristic. I guess that's always my benchmark, my yearly benchmark, is how futuristic the announcements are from the I/O. And I think we got more applied applications of AI versus like wholly new products. It's AI moving into Gmail, more AI moving into Gmail, into Google Meet. I wish I had a reason to try the voice to speech translate, the interpreter, really. But yeah, it's Google Meet, Gmail, Gemini got some upgrades. But yeah, it was one of the better I/Os. It's futuristic. It's Google, definitely better than last year in terms of products that immediately we were able to try. So much stuff is coming in the summer in terms of search. So yeah, I think that was one of Google's better I/Os.
I feel like last year we were kind of coming off the back of I/O, and there was a whole, how would I describe it? It was more of a there was a bit more. I don't want to say knee jerk, but that's the only way to describe it. There was a bit more of a knee jerk reaction to, the internet's going to die. AI overviews are going to kill everything. AI overviews is a slop era of AI. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of slop era, and AI overviews does need a lot of work. But you can already see that Gemini as a platform, because I guess it is a platform, not a product, is probably in a really good position in terms of like, and I would probably count myself as a bit of an AI hater. I've started to integrate certain things into my workflows because, hey, you can't let things get away from you, if that makes sense. If someone else, if you don't do it, somebody else will. And what I found with some of the announcements were that they feel more obvious this time around, as opposed to, oh, we're just going to put out as much information as humanly possible and hope that something sticks. I think
Gemini
it was
seems like the more
less abstract,
intentional.
right? Yeah, it's less abstract this year because there is tangible things off the back of Gemini. And I think having used Gemini a lot more in the intervening 11 months or 12 months, whatever the hell it was, I'm finding certain things genuinely useful. Some things are still, I don't understand them, but maybe it's just not for me. Maybe AI is not this, and I think a lot of people have maybe touted it as this catch-all thing. And obviously AI, the terminology is strange because obviously we have LLMs and we have like, the application of AI is very different from product to product. And I think that's maybe where we were last year. We were kind of like, well, how's this going to operate? How's this going to work? We didn't have a frame of reference.
How you want
really
to use in your daily life? And I think
and I think
you need to use AI. It's like I said, AI is the hardest thing to market in the world, the hardest product, and the use cases that work for you. They don't really translate to other people. It's such a hard marketing problem. But once you the best thing for Google was to have people just use their stuff and to get a feel for it and talk. And I think that the takeaway you got was from Gemini Live in the car, or Gemini in general in the car.
Yeah, I think that is genuinely that will change the way that I navigate the world. And that sounds ridiculous. It sounds hyperbolic, but the idea of having, and I think a lot of this is, there's a few things that have led to this point. I think most modern vehicles, as a driver, have moved away from the traditional buttons and dials, and you can almost use them without taking your eyes off the road. I think we reached a point a few years ago where tech companies got involved with cars more readily, and then we ended up in a situation, and Android Automotive is partially to blame for this, is they started to put a tech stack in the vehicle which was distracting, and I'm going to, dare I say it, dangerous. I think having huge touchscreen devices in the middle of your dashboard is genuinely quite dangerous because you take your eyes off the road to interact with it rather than just touch a button and increase the temperature in the room or in the vehicle, or increase the volume. You might get that on your steering wheel and with a few buttons, but then you're overawed with the amount of choice and what each function does. I think the Google Assistant was an attempt at almost curbing that, and yeah, the Google Assistant's fine. The Google Assistant, I think, has reached its almost natural end. I think we reached that point probably a few years ago when the rigid command system of the Google Assistant in a vehicle is so stressful to use when you're trying to drive, because obviously you are genuinely, in a lot of cases, you could have a 2, 3, 4 ton vehicle traveling at 60, 70 miles an hour. The last thing you want to do is you're not concentrating on what the exact wording of the prompt is. And then you get frustrated and road rage if Google Assistant doesn't apply that correctly from what you said. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with it. But the way that I saw Gemini, specifically in Android Auto, because that was where it's going to roll out first, and having access to all of your on-device files, is genuinely phenomenal. I genuinely cannot believe how well it rolled with the punches. We threw a lot of things. We tried to throw in some curveballs because it was on a bit of an on-rails demo, but like even little things, asking for a song on the radio and you don't know the name of the artist, I don't need to look at my phone. I don't need to look anywhere. I just ask Gemini. It's conversational. It tells me it's going to play it. Then even it did genuinely. It's one of the few things in the last few years that's, I don't want to say blow my mind, but it's done what I actually wanted from a service.
Yeah, it sounds simple. Like we've had Gemini Live on our phones, and translating it over the car seems like, okay, is that really that difficult? Is that really that impressive? Is that really that different? But I think it speaks to how context matters. The form factors really matters. The use, where you're using it. I think the antidote that anecdote, sorry, that Google executives are giving out, like instead of they're talking to Gemini Live on their commutes, which there's some American car culture, etc., during their morning commutes, and they found like they talk instead of, let's say, calling somebody, they have a conversation with Gemini Live, which, I mean, you can't always line up calls with your commutes, etc. But it's interesting. It's people talking to it, getting a dedicated space, or get dedicated time, rather. I don't know if it's just 10, 15 minutes a day of you talking to Gemini Live instead of, say, listening to a podcast or whatever. I think that's like such a hidden thing, a hidden time, space that Google can monopolize. It's I think it's, again, like once it rolls out, people will try it. But I don't know, next time you're taking a walk, see what happens when you talk to Gemini Live. It's a natural fit, this time in the car where, yeah, you can listen to music or podcasts, or you can try having this conversation. And I think that's could be promising, really promising.
Yeah, I think as well, and this is going to sound weird the way I explain it, but it works in my head. That's the main thing. I think being in a car is almost like a closed ecosystem.
Yes.
And I think if you have say you have another person in the vehicle, it opens up that ecosystem slightly wider, doesn't it? You can talk to someone in the vehicle, you can interact with them. I think I do a lot of solo driving, and sometimes when, for instance, just seeing how Gemini worked with directional navigation, sorry, not directional. You can kind of ask things that are contextual to where you're going to. So, for instance, you might ask it, and obviously some of the demos were like, "Oh, I need to add this to the shopping list." You may be going to the supermarket, or the grocery store, and you find a recipe, and then you can add something to your shopping list instantaneously. So, for instance, you can ask Gemini to say, "Oh, I forgot about these 3 ingredients. Can you add them to the shopping list?" Like, the only downside was we didn't get to see the test device, seeing that person's keep notes list to see if it actually did work. I can only assume that it did, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in that regard. That could be insane, because you could jump off a call with somebody in the vehicle. Oh, we forgot to pick up eggs. Could you pick up some eggs? You ask Gemini to do it. You say, "Oh, what recipe are we working on? Oh, what we only need 3 eggs, but we're going to buy 6. What can I do with the extra 3 eggs?" Like, that sounds far like
mundane.
That's futurism. That's that futurism that I think I want from technology. And this is probably like, I mean, I'm definitely showing my age here, and I never even watched it, to be honest with you. But Knight Rider, being able to talk to your vehicle and get, is it Kit the car?
Yes,
yeah, you can
it's
kind of
Kit
talk
the
to your
car
car and get all of that feedback. If it develops the way I think it's going to develop, and I do think what will happen is they start integrating Astra into your in-car dash cameras. This could
be wild.
This could make some genuine strides, because I don't think we've had a quantum leap in in-car entertainment since Bluetooth has added, and then maybe Wi-Fi, in-car Wi-Fi and data signals being able to kind of pull Google Maps from your dash. Like, this could be that step forward, and Apple won't be able to do it. Apple cannot do this. There's only one company on the planet that can do this, and without kind of glazing Google a little bit there, that they are the only company that can, and the only company that will, unless somebody partners with ChatGPT. Like, ChatGPT doesn't have anywhere near as many integrations as Google to your personal life and to you, your Gmail, your Keep Notes, your
Google Maps,
Save Spaces. Like, yeah, I was really, really impressed. The only thing I did want to see is we got a demo of there's a brand new feature being developed for Android Auto called Spotify Jam, I think it is. I don't know when that was announced. Getting to see that was cool, but we now need to see the equivalent with YouTube Music, and nobody could kind of tell me. I understand that the YouTube team and the Android Auto team probably worked siloed about this, but yeah, if you could start adding other little integrations, then Android Auto, hey, it's going to be perfect. I think it could be one of Google's most powerful products in the next few years without even realizing it.
Yeah, Gemini Live. It's I'm personally waiting for the Keep integrations, the calendar, the tasks, the maps to come to Gemini Live on the phone. I'm looking forward to that experience being more actionable. So let's say other Gemini stuff. Gemini in Chrome is something I'm surprisingly using. Mostly as it exists in the corner. They move the fast tab search button so that the Gemini Sparkle could go in the very top right corner. And what I'm using it for is less to explain what's on my page, but just as like one button access to Gemini wherever I am, instead of going to a tab. I think that's a bit underrated. This version of Gemini in Chrome cannot like navigate the web for you yet. That's hopefully coming this year. But in the meantime, the utility I found from it is just having one tap floating window access to Gemini, and that's pretty good. Just saves you from switching to a browser tab and losing the context of what you are asking on the current page. So that's a nice small thing. Let's see, other Gemini stuff. Yeah, I think it's an interesting roadmap for the rest of the year. We'll see what they do when the next Pixel comes out. But yeah, it's Gemini, and I think that's the big takeaway. I think I want to touch upon Android a little bit in terms of
sure.
The keynote. I'll just say this again. But if everything they announced at the Android show a week previously, the Material Tree Expressive stuff, the Wear OS 6 stuff, if that was announced during last week's keynote, I think that would have been so impressive. One of the best Android showings in years. Giving it time on the big stage, all that. I feel like I know the keynote was like bordering 2 hours already, but I feel like they could have condensed that to 10 minutes, put it in front of the Wear OS out of the Android XR glasses, and I think that would have been a really good showing that showed how Android was on the same scale as Gemini and the same scale as Search. So food for thought for Google.
I think it's a good point. I kind of like the idea of the Android show breaking off though and being its own thing. I think there's a lot of people. I understand that Android and Gemini are intrinsically linked now, and they're going to be one and the same at some point, I'd imagine. I feel like having a separate Android show is kind of good for those that maybe don't necessarily care too much about the intricacies of AI. I think you get your top level stuff that you care about and you might utilize. I wonder how that forms the strategy around Pixel, Android being its own thing, the Android show effectively, or like you say, it could have just been a scheduling thing. I'm intrigued to see how it all pans out in the long term. But I mean, from anyone out there listening, I think you can probably tell us what you think. Do you think that Android should be back at I/O? I feel like it feels weird that it's not there, but I think in terms of like workload and all of the stuff that you want to cover, I think having a bit of separation is kind of nice, and I think that probably comes across a bit more readily in that you can kind of prepare for these things. I think if it was a 3-hour keynote and we had all of that stuff, it'd be like, oh wow, what the hell? How the hell? We're going to have to get Gemini to summarize this for us. And then I don't know. I'm really pleasantly surprised. I think getting that QPR beta as well at I/O was huge. I think we speculated about it for ages, and I think I said I could see them potentially launching the full release. But I do think, okay, I'm gonna try and score a dodgy win here, because we kind of agree, I guess, that QPR1 is the real Android 16, and I think anyone else out there probably agrees. So getting to see that at I/O, although it was a long, stressful event, was nice. I think a lot of people have been very, very happy with it, and I think it's the update that everybody wants. I guess it kind of links with something that happened in the last couple of days, is that Samsung have just released their version of their Android 16 preview. To me, that probably screams that everyone else is on board now. If Google's helping Samsung fire that out the door after the delays of One UI 7, which is fantastic, then it's going to be sooner than later that we get that first taste, I guess, the the vanilla Android 16. I'm going to call it Android 15.5, Android 15.5 before the big dog QPR1. And yeah, we'll probably see that in the next couple of weeks, right? I guess, based upon that.
I haven't really had the chance to dive into One UI 8, and it's not available on my phone. But what's the design the same? What's
design is the same? Yeah,
some app updates.
It's just more. It's just more of the good stuff of One UI 7, which I've championed for a while now. I think it's fantastic. There's a few little things that I think will improve certain things like routines. There's quite a few powerful features in there. Will I utilize all of them? Probably not. It kind of is what it is. I feel like we're all awaiting a bigger update, and Samsung have done theirs already. They got ahead of Google with Android 15 and done a big change in visuals. Same with One UI. Same with Oxygen OS. Sorry. And I think it's now Google's turn, I guess, to have the limelight later on in the year when that QPR1 update comes up. I'm really excited to see how that runs on Pixel 10. I mean, I guess we're all excited for Pixel 10, right? But yeah, One UI 8, more of the good stuff, more of the same. It's just, they've just really killed it last few years, Samsung, I think. Their updates, they've really listened, I think. And I'm glad that Google is doing something similar this time around. Like, hey, if they're going to do big updates like this every 4 years and really, really go for it, then I'm all for it, to be honest. I'm all for it.
So I think just to round out the show, any new things you found in Android 16 QPR1? I think my quick settings have settled down. And I've customized that. I decreased the size of the default clock on the lock screen, but I think I like that I can fit let's see, 3 more quick settings when I swipe down on the notification shade. I like that. Definitely getting the most out of that. But yeah, I think my customization stuff has stabilized in the past week. How about you? What's your phone looking like?
I have been I think my favorite, this is going to sound really, really good, really lame. I really like the fact that I can tap Bluetooth and turn it off. When I was flying, when I flew back, I had my SIM in the 9 Pro, watching films on the not 9 Pro, 9 Pro Fold, sorry. Watching a few films and stuff and having stuff side by side, and then being able to turn off Bluetooth when somebody came to talk to me and then turn it back on was like, that sounds ridiculous, but having not had that for a while, it is. You forget how useful it is. I think I love the utility of the new quick settings. I am definitely a proponent of a separate notifications and settins. I kind of like the idea of a split. Yeah, I like the split nature of it. I think it's good. I want to see that now.
That's madness.
I've become accustomed to it with Oxygen OS and One UI again. So yeah,
first thing I turned off.
This is the first time I think in a while, and this is why I'm glad that Google's gone this route. Is this is almost like therapy to get a big update. I think I was getting so bored a little bit with what Google was doing with their previous updates that I wanted these big changes. So even just seeing visual differences is ace. I kind of hated the battery pill in the status bar. Is it battery pill? I absolutely hated it at first, but now I'm kind of on board with it.
It's whatever. I'm just whatever about it, ambivalent. I've gotten used to all the changes, so that if that's a week after updating, everything feels normal. That's how long it takes.
I want to ask you what you think of the system font before we kind of shoot off, because I think I was critical of it. I was very Comic Sansy, and I know that any designers out there will be like, that is like heresy. You can't say that, but that's what I thought initially. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. I feel like there's some bugs in terms of like color that they need to handle. That's my big thing about like as the beta one, and I guess in the grand scheme, if those are your biggest issues, the beta one, it could be worse. There's no performance issues for me. Again, this has been my daily driver, my 9A. I usually hold off on putting anything stable on my anything beta on my daily driver, but this has been perfectly fine. Google Wallet works, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm ready. I'm can't wait for the bug fixes. I can't wait for the optimizations in the coming months. Well, 2 months, 3 months. But yeah, I think that's it. So far.
I think it's been fantastic. I think they've done a fantastic job so far already, and you don't normally see that with an initial beta, especially with a QPR like this. We're not used to these big changes in a QPR release. We're used to those like minor refinements, and this is this is a refinement of a major. Anymore. This is a major refinement, isn't it? So
these things have no meaning anymore, but whatever.
No meaning, and I think that kind of sums it up. I think we've had a busy couple of weeks, and it's only going to get busier if we see that initial Android 16 release. So yeah, stick around. It's been a pleasure to have our time with you, and it's a shame we're not in the same room again this time. After maybe we can sort that out in time for Made by Google. But yeah, thanks guys for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.